Sound check. Sound check. Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Dr. Nathan Thompson with the Wellness Way, Yorkville. Happy Monday, guys. What is it, July 7th? Hope you guys had a great 4th of July weekend. I had a great weekend as well. So I hope you guys had a safe, enjoyable Independence Day. And I hope you guys had a great time to rest, rejuvenate, to be able to relax, recover. Thank you guys so much if you're watching right now on this live broadcast. I appreciate you joining me. The title of tonight is going to be Fasting 101. So pay attention to this because last week I asked the question, hey, do you want me to talk about fasting? A lot of people reached out and said, yes, please talk about fasting. So I'm going to talk about what it is, what it isn't, and some of the benefits and some of the things you really got to watch out for when you are talking about fasting. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about the flu vaccine. We can talk about that. Um, and I'm going to talk about some interesting things because I did a reel about the flu vaccine, how it's an utter dud, just like basically every single year. But man, did it ruffle some feathers. It's almost like I attack people's religion because vaccines are the biggest religion in healthcare today. There's no question about it. However, I'm going to talk about fasting, a little bit. I'm going to touch on some other subjects as well. And if you're watching, please just say hello. Let me know where you're watching from as well. If you're watching replay, let me know you're watching the replay. That way I know who's going back and who's watching some important content. So you may, yes, I will talk about fasting and inflammation, and I'm going to explain to you why. But guys, if you are from the Chicagoland area, you want to work with the Wellness Way, you want to work with our approach directly. Here's something that's really, really cool. I had a woman who was on thyroid medications for 20 years and has been able to completely get off of it. So thyroid medication free. We just went over her labs again. Thyroid is completely normal. However, she just did have to go through things in order to help the thyroid function to improve. But that's one of the really coolest things is actually helping people be able to get off of medication, not continue to add more medications to people's lives. And people have a real problem with that. I don't understand why. So our next inflammation event is going to be 2 weeks from tomorrow, or yes, 2 weeks from tomorrow, July 22nd, at 6:00 p.m. This is an in-person event. And if you look at inflammation is tied to having some issues with weight loss resistance. Yes, cancer is an inflammatory issue, guys. This is the big thing. When you talk about inflammation, you're talking about an immune system response, which is going to affect your hormones. There's no doubt about it. Most thyroid disease is actually an inflammatory response or autoimmune condition that's going on. Joint pain, arthritis, type 2 diabetes, autoimmunity, balancing your hormones. Hormones are secondary. They're responders. And in fact, hormone issues are really just a response to inflammatory issues. And so at that event, when you go there, you'll have an opportunity to learn a different perspective. Not only that, but then be able to work with me directly one-on-one. So all you got to do is just go to all our socials. You see our Linktree profile and all our socials. Click on that link. And then just click on that, and it'll take you 60 seconds to register. It's a free event to attend. We also have a gift for you at that event. So all you got to do is just take 60 seconds, get registered for it. The only thing that we ask is if you do register for it, that you are, in fact, going to be there and that you are coming, because my staff does a lot of work in order to get things ready for you to be able to be there to give you an awesome, incredible experience, okay? Now we are through July. We're getting into July, and we have started the Get Fit Challenge from the Wellness Way. And you may ask the question, actually, what is the Get Fit Challenge? Well, it's all about daily activities. So 30 minutes of movement, avoiding your food allergies, 15 to 20 minutes of sun exposure, getting enough protein, water, electrolytes. Yes, taking your shoes off and grounding, specifically like in the grass or something like that, and connecting to the earth. And then some weekly activities of watching A Different Perspective with Dr. Patrick Flynn. Guys, he's doing an incredible job over the last several weeks and talking about the immune system and things like that. And I will tell you this, a lot of people who argue with me about the immune system saying that I'm just a dumb chiropractor. Like, you just hate it because you don't understand it, and you have been misled so much when it comes to the immune system or how to build an immune system response. Dr. Patrick Flynn is going through tremendous stuff over the last several weeks about your immune system and things like that. And when you're on there too and you engage, they have given away thousands of dollars of stuff on that. So all you got to do is just go to thewellnessway.com, get fit, give them your email address. They'll send you the things in order to get involved with that. And then on top of that, I actually put the link on our Linktree, is that on the Wellness Way Plus, you can get a membership. I think it's $15 a month. And on that membership page, tons of videos, tons of demonstrations, just tons of stuff, guys. You won't be able to go through all of it within a month. But yeah, you can go ahead and do that. And I'm telling you, because people ask me all the time, and I'm like, I don't have time to like literally spell it out for you. But this spells it out pretty easily for you. It's a lot cheaper than having a consultation with me as well. So just click that on our Linktree. You'll be able to find that. Very easy to get registered for that as well. Okay. Now, guys, I want to get your input, because I have asked this question to some of the men, within our office. But I haven't done it in 2 years, just for time's sake. And also it requires a lot of energy on my part. But I was thinking about doing an in-person event here at our office, and it's called Man Up. And it really is talking to men about how to increase your testosterone without all the gimmicks that are out there. And this is 100% lifestyle based, and it's over 4 weeks. And so at the kickoff, I talked to you about some of the biggest things that are influencing a man's testosterone and what you can do in order to correct it. But then we set a tone for 4 weeks to go through very specific things. So it requires men to put in some effort. It requires some guidance, on my part. And yes, we do teach men about nutrition and one of the things to do. And many men have done this. And many times I've gotten a email or a message from the men's wives, and they're just like, "What did you do to my husband? You need to turn this off," because we're doing things that are very stimulatory for testosterone production without giving people supplements or anything like that. This is all 100% lifestyle. And so if you are from, I'm going to say that kind of around the Yorkville area, and this is something that you would be interested in, send me a message. I want you to don't put in the comments, "Yes, I'm interested." Send me a message about that, because we do have enough men who are interested in this. Then yes, I will do it. But we're going to need to have at least 15 to 20 men who are 100% committed to doing this. So if you are from around the Yorkville area and you're willing to go through a transformation over 4 weeks, please send me a message. Not your wife, but men. And then we'll consider setting a date for that. Okay. All right. So now, just as a reminder, at least once a week, someone will be like, "Where's that one video I saw and I don't know where to find it? Can you send me the link?" No, I'm not going to send you the link. If you really want to know and find that video, go to YouTube and then click on live on my page. And then you'll see about 3 years of live video broadcast on there. We don't have every single one. Some of them were removed by YouTube, but I'll send you the biggest one that I want you guys to watch in regards to that. But if you scroll through that, you'll see our live videos over the last 3 to 4 years. Excuse me, very, very important. So make sure that you're watching those things, and you'll be able to catch all of those live replays. If you just go up, go to the page, go to content, and then you'll see live, and then you'll see literally tons and tons of, hours of stuff that you can go back and you can rewatch too. So very important. Please don't ask me where you find that video. Just go onto YouTube and find it. Okay. So fasting 101, guys, this is important. Because I'm going to show you the ins and outs of this, who this is for, who this isn't. But hopefully you understand when I say you shouldn't do this, or yes, you should do this. It'll help you to understand why you should or why you shouldn't. Okay. Now, going backwards a little bit, I did a short video, a reel, and I said the flu vaccine was an absolute disaster, like it is many years. But this actually comes from the Cleveland Clinic, who did this study, and they measured a lot of people. They looked at a lot of people. Okay. Now, there's so many people with disparaging remarks on there. And guess what? I'm here for it. And in fact, you'll have to forgive me. You go and look at some of those remarks. And yes, I can be a little bit childish, or whatnot, but I just go in because I know how to irritate people a little bit. And sometimes I get a little bit of joy from irritating people a little bit, especially when you want to run your mouth, and then you can't back it up. So this is in preprint. However, here's the title of this. This is actually what you can read: the effectiveness of the influenza vaccine during the 2024-2025 respiratory viral season. Okay. Now, a little bit of background about this study. The purpose of the study was to evaluate the effectiveness of the influenza vaccine during the 2024-2025 respiratory viral season. Now, the methods they used, they looked at employees of the Cleveland Clinic in employment in Ohio on October 1st, 2024. They were included. Cumulative incidence of influenza among those in the vaccinated and unvaccinated states was compared over the following 25 weeks. Okay, now here's the results. This is the results, guys. 53,000 employees, over 53,000 employees, and 82% of them had received the influenza vaccine by the end of the study. Okay. The cumulative incidence of influenza was similar for the vaccinated and unvaccinated states early, but over the course of the study, the cumulative incidence of influenza increased more rapidly among the vaccinated than the unvaccinated. Now, here's the thing. The vaccine doesn't give you the flu, okay? The flu, it has it's not a live virus type of vaccine. But if you are seeing more people get the flu that have had the actual vaccine, then one of the things I'm asking the question is, well, then what's causing people to become immunocompromised? I didn't even ask for people to comments, but there is literally thousands of comments on all our platforms of people talking about how they got it and they felt so awful afterwards. Well, why did they feel so awful? No, they didn't get the flu, but maybe one of the things that was happening is that it's causing people to become immunocompromised, which is going to make you very susceptible to any virus or any bacteria, or maybe it's so toxic. And in fact, when people are very heavily detoxing, or it's causing a massive inflammatory response because they're trying to stimulate the immune system so much with some of these adjuvants and viral particles, things like that. And it's not going to make people feel very good. But if you read the comments over and over again, people are saying, I've never been sicker. I've never been sicker. Okay. But one of the things they found was over the course of the study, the cumulative incidence of influenza increased more rapidly among the vaccinated than the unvaccinated. In the analysis, now listen to this, adjusted for age, sex, clinical nursing job, and employment location, the risk of influenza was significantly higher for the vaccinated compared to the unvaccinated state. Okay. So yielding a calculated vaccine effectiveness of negative 26.9%. So the effectiveness, every year they say the effectiveness of the quote unquote vaccine, and then they might say it's 10%, 15, 20. There have been years where it's been 0, but this wasn't just 0. This was negative 27%, which actually means that it made you worse. Okay. This is like me saying, hey, you know what? If you go to this restaurant, your chances of having a good experience and good food at this restaurant is zero. And if it's zero, it's like there's no chance that that's going to happen. But if it's at negative 27%, then chances are that they're not only going to give you bad food, but they'll probably spill all over your clothes and give you even a worse experience. Okay. And people are actually arguing with this as if for some reason you can somehow get health from injecting things, bypassing the barrier, and somehow thinking that the immune system is going to respond to this. It just doesn't make any sense. Negative 27% effectiveness. Now, before you want to spout off because I'm attacking your religion, go read the comments on people's experiences and stop gaslighting them. Okay. So, now here's the question I want to ask. How do vaccines normalize the immune system? Okay. They don't. They don't normalize the immune system. They skew it. They skew the immune system response, and they're not normalizing the immune system. So here's my challenge to you. If you have gotten a flu vaccine or maybe even the COVID vaccine, this is my challenge to you is number one, get an expanded lymphocyte enumeration. We call that an immune system panel. It's basically looking at your lymphocytes, which are your white blood cells, and then it's going in and then dividing it down to see what kind of lymphocytes you have. I specifically would love to see, CD4 cells and CD8 cells, because one of the things that I've demonstrated on other COV, et cetera, therapeutics was the decrease in the CD8 cells, which are responsible for inhibition of a virus. So get an expanded lymphocyte enumeration. Get it before. You can get this from your doctor. They'll probably charge you $3,500 for it, but you can still get it. And one of the things that I would love to see, especially if you're going getting your flu vaccine, is get it prior to the vaccine, get it immediately after. And then when I say after, give it some time, 3 months, and see if your immune system actually goes back down to normal. Okay. So get a couple of them. And I have measured that, in people. And that's why I can look at hard data to see what's going on and be able to report on it. But people have a problem with reporting on it. And which means I'm just basically, to them, I'm attacking their religion, okay, attacking their quote unquote belief system. And every time that people feel attacked from their belief system, immature people have a really, really hard time being able to deal with it. So get an expanded lymphocyte enumeration, otherwise known as an immune panel, and just see, what's going on. But if you have people who are getting a, quote unquote flu vaccine and they have a higher incidence of getting sicker later, then obviously something has to be suppressing the immune system, which will make you susceptible to literally any single virus, any kind of viral infection. And if you want to know more about this, then just watch this webinar that I did, and I have it up on our Linktree about make immune systems strong again. Okay, this is on the Rumble platform. It's about an hour and a half long, but I talk about the immune system, the different type of cells, and what you can do in order to help facilitate and help those cells to be able to be able to thrive. And it is about nourishing the immune system, but it's also about stress, and it's about fight or flight, it's about toxicity, it's about all that. And then I go with some very interesting research articles too on that, of why it was what was an absolute failure. And I talk about Duke University and what they say about really what the immune system needs. It needs to see the whole virus and not just viral particles if you really do want some kind of proper immune system response. And it needs to happen at the barrier. It can't bypass the barrier. It needs to happen at the barrier in order to have a proper immune system response. Okay. So go ahead, watch that video, click on that link. You can watch it for free on Rumble. It's about an hour and a half long. And if you do watch it, leave a comment. Let me know what your thoughts are. So fasting 101. Okay. Fasting 101. Let's get a little bit into fasting. What is fasting? Okay. What is fasting? Here's the definition. It's the rejuvenation of the body through the intentional abstinence of food. So basically, it's just withholding from eating. That's what fasting actually is. Now, I'm going to say this. Fasting is really a tool. So it's a tool. And I'll use many different tools in my toolbox, but it's not one of those things where I only have one or two tools and that's all I use, because everything, because I look at everything as a nail, which means only because the only tool I have is a hammer. I will tell you this, is that most medical doctors only have two tools. They have a hose and they have an axe. They have a scalpel to perform surgery on you. And then they have, like a hose like a fire department just to pump you full of drugs. Does it mean that it's useless what they do? Absolutely not, because there are times, when people say that I'm so anti-medicine, I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm doing everything I can to make sure that I don't have a fire. But if I do, that's what I'm going to use. But if you look at this, we're looking at things that not everything is just all about fasting. We're looking at it as a tool. So I've used a lot of different tools in order to be able to help people. Can it be an adjustment? Absolutely. Can it be the no sugar diet? Absolutely. Can it be specific medicinal herbs? Absolutely. Can it be aloe vera juice? Can it be stomach acid? Absolutely. Can it be fasting? Yes, it can be, but it's a tool. And this is why many times you need to do many different things in order to get your health back. Very rarely is it just one thing. So I want you guys to understand that fasting is a tool and it's not necessarily an end all be all. Okay. That's why there's, someone was, their health got a lot of help from, doing some kind of fast. And then they think everybody's supposed to do some kind of fast. It's a tool and not necessarily an end all be all. So let's look at fasting and understand that there's different types of fasting that is involved. So number one, you can have what's known as intermittent fasting, which really is not fasting. It's more of what you would call time restricted eating, because really I think for fasting, it needs to be 24 hours or over, just because, a person's transit time from their mouth to when they have a bowel movement is going to be about 24 hours, which means, if you're fasting for 12 hours, your body is still utilizing food from 12 hours ago. So intermittent fasting, otherwise known as time restricted eating. You also have 5-2 fasting, in which you eat for 5 days, you fast for 2 days. And then I'm going to talk, just for the sake of brevity, extended fasting, which would be 3 days to 5 days. So doing what's known as extended fasting. So let's talk primarily about extended fasting. Now, here is one of the reasons why, okay? Here's one of the reasons why. Now, I've talked about sugar, okay? Sugar can cause a lot of issues when it comes to the immune system. And this comes from the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. This was 50 years ago, but this was what's really, really interesting, because they've known this for a very, very long time, is that high amounts of sugar suppress specific cells of the immune system, which primarily are responsible for the eating of bacteria, or phagocytosis of bacteria. Okay. So here's what they found. Oral 100-gram portions of carbohydrate from glucose, fructose, sucrose, honey, or orange juice all significantly decrease the capacity of neutrophils, which are the most abundant white blood cell in the body. And they're also, neutrophils are called little eaters, and they're primarily responsible for bacterial infections. The capacity of neutrophils to engulf bacteria, as measured by the slide technique. Okay. The decrease in phagocytic index was rapid following the ingestion of simple carbohydrates. Okay. Simple carbohydrates, we're talking about, 100 grams, which sometimes people are getting 300-400 grams of simple carbohydrates at meals. Okay. Now, 5 hours after feeding, one of the things they found that the function of the neutrophils went down, but not the overall number. So it almost as if they just paralyzed those neutrophils. And so it suggested that the function, not the number of phagocytes, was altered by ingestion of sugars. Okay. Now here's what's interesting. This is why, people go into the holiday season just dumping all kinds of sugars, and then they wonder why everybody gets sick, and then they decide they're going to call it the flu season, as if the flu has some kind of brain, some kind of nefarious agenda. But you can actually get sick any time of the year if you are doing things that's going to suppress and do some harm to your immune system. But here's what's interesting. So they found the function of these specific cells didn't function the way that it was supposed to when you had 100 grams of simple carbohydrates. And then they said, on the other hand, a fast of 36 or 60 hours significantly increased the phagocytic index. So fasting in this case actually helped to improve their immune system because it wasn't just doing some things to damage the neutrophils, in which sugar will do that. Okay, sugar will do that. High blood sugars will do that. All those things can significantly increase or significantly alter the activity of those things, which will make you a lot more susceptible to some kind of bacterial infection, but also a viral infection too, because there's a viral component to neutrophils. So I found that interesting of how this actually does support, fasting, especially if you're eating tons of sugar. Okay. So you need to make sure staying off the sugar, especially. Now, intermittent fasting, or otherwise known as time restricting eating, one of the things I want to tell you is there's really nothing magical about intermittent fasting. There's nothing magical about it. Okay. Here's the most magical thing about it is that it gives you an opportunity to decrease your insulin exposure. And it also, for a lot of people, because they're shrinking down their food within a specific time period, then it just decreases the amount of mindless eating that they are doing, which in turn, one of the things that it's going to do is going to decrease how many calories they're consuming throughout the day. I will also say this: is it what you're eating or is it when you're eating? I would say what you're eating is more important than when you are eating. So that's why, in fact, I tell you this is like, I don't even use this as a strategy, but like most of the time, I am doing intermittent fasting only because I really haven't had any food today, and I'll eat tonight. So I mean, I'm basically doing like 20 hours of non-feeding, 4 hours of feeding during that time. And that's just because, I'm just go, 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 go. And I don't really have that much time to eat. But I'm also making sure that at my dinner, I'm making sure I'm getting enough protein in. I'm making sure I'm getting tons of veggies. I'm making sure I'm getting enough minerals and things like that. And yes, I do supplements and certain things so that I just don't get enough, specifically like potassium as well. So if you look at intermittent fast and time restricted eating, there's different strategies that you can employ with this. 16-8, which would be not eating for 16 hours, getting all your food in for 8 hours, or not eating for 18 hours, getting all your food in within, 6 hours, or, they call this almost like warrior intermittent fasting or time restricted eating, in which you're basically not eating for 20 hours and getting all your food in within 4 hours within a 4-hour window. You can use this for a short period of time, but I'm going to tell you, it's going to be very, very hard for you to get, things that you need specifically like protein and things like that within your nutrition. And that's why probably I would say probably the best way, to go is to be getting in about 2 meals a day. I would say get a great breakfast in, get a great dinner. But lunch, I believe, is actually kind of overrated. So now, what about an extended fast? A true fast, meaning you are abstaining from food longer than 24 hours. So you got a 3-day, you got a 5-day. There's really like, no kind of protocol for it because I've probably done 23-day fasts. So I've fasted for 3 days, probably about 20 times. I've done a couple of 5-day fasts. The longest I fasted for is for 6 days. So basically during that fast, over the course of 3 days of 5 days, it's no food. Yes, you can have water, you can have coffee, tea. I'm not concerned about that. But sometimes people need to be getting minerals in, especially if they are, trying to exercise or they're sweating during that time. Potassium, sodium, and magnesium. And I've done a 3-day fast in which I've gotten no potassium, no sodium, no magnesium. And I've also done a 3-day fast in which I've been taking 3,000 to 4,000 milligrams of potassium, getting a lot of salt in and getting extra magnesium in, only because I continue to work out through those fasts. So now I know someone's going to ask me this question, so I want to answer this for you. So extended fast, who can or who should do it? Okay. I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to explain to you why. Men, I think that men should do it about every 3 months. Can postmenopausal women do it? I think that they can, provided that there's a certain criteria that you are meeting in regards to this. But insulin resistance and women suffering with PCOS who are actually demonstrating some insulin resistance, fasting could actually benefit you as well. And also, I would say if you got a peptic ulcer, fasting is probably the way to go. Only because if you got a peptic ulcer, you probably have an H. pylori infection, and you have just some really irritated, inflamed raw tissue in your stomach. And so not releasing any stomach acid by abstaining from food and doing some other things in order to help that ulcer be able to heal, have found that this could be very, very beneficial. Things like licorice root, aloe vera juice, things like that are things that can help. But you give 3 days of not irritating that tissue with stomach acid, and the stomach lining has a very fast turnover rate to allow that to be able to heal, to take a little bit of stress and pressure off of that. That's who I think can do it. But there's also people who I think shouldn't do it. So extended fast, anything longer, than just, doing any kind of time restricted eating. So who shouldn't do it? I don't think women who are cycling, so are having a menstrual cycle, unless they have a peptic ulcer. I've had women who are cycling, and only on 2 occasions have I ever recommended it, but they both times had a peptic ulcer, and they weren't gonna move forward until that peptic ulcer healed, okay? So I don't think cycling women should do it unless there's a very specific criteria. Number 2, disordered eating. So if you suffer with some kind of eating disorder, we don't want to exacerbate that. So, if you have uh, problems with, bulimia or anorexia or something like that, you don't want to fall into further disordered eating. So, someone has had some kind of, eating disorder, probably not going to recommend that as well. Um, Kids and adolescents, no, I think you need to focus on a good diet, good nutrition. And if kids and adolescents need weight loss, there's better ways to do it as well. They're growing, and I wouldn't do that as well. But this is something that's very important, is low cortisol. So if someone has chronically low cortisol, I'm going to show you a clinical example here in just a second, which is really an immune system issue. Then if you got chronically low cortisol, you're going to have a really, really hard time with your body trying to mobilize sugars. And at that point, it's going to cause a lot of issues with you. So I'll show you a clinical example here in just a second. And also, if someone is type 2 diabetic and they're taking a lot of medications in order to try to get their sugars down, then one of the things you need to do is really need to closely monitor this, because 9 times out of 10, they're going to need to decrease the amount of medications that they're taking, especially while they're fasting, because they're not getting any kind of foods or sugars or anything like that in. And then what happens is they take the medication, it drops their sugars even lower. So you got to be a little careful when it comes to that. So when I say that cycling women shouldn't fast, it's not because I'm trying to punish you, but here's one of the reasons why. Okay. Here's one of the reasons why. If you look at the the sex hormone pathways, you'll see here progesterone. Okay. Progesterone is also, and think of this: if I fast, my blood sugars get down, then there's a stress hormone known as cortisol. And everybody thinks they demonize cortisol, but I'm going to tell you something, guys. If you had very, very low cortisol, it's very hard for people to get out of bed when they're very, very low cortisol. But one of the biggest reasons why they have such low cortisol is they have such a massive inflammatory response that's going on. But if you start to fast, you're going to notice your cortisol levels are going to go up as it starts to mobilize sugars. And the problem is you're going to notice that when you fast, your cortisol will get very elevated. And if you're really, really elevating your cortisol, then one of the things that can happen is it can start to really stress the body out, and it can rob progesterone. And at that point, it can mess up your menstrual cycle, make your menstrual cycle shorter. And you'll start entering into, having your period a lot sooner, just because you're not hanging on to progesterone. So you're not going 28 days. You might go 23, 24 days, because fasting can be stressful, especially to a woman who is cycling. Okay. Now, I also said, if you don't have enough cortisol, I wouldn't fast. I'm going to give you a clinical example, because this is a Dutch test right here. And this is actually in a menopausal woman. And so you can see very extremely low in hormones. And actually, if you look at, things that are made by our adrenal glands, like some of her hormones, yes, are made by adrenal glands, but then you look at things like DHA made by the adrenal glands. And if you look at her metabolized or total cortisol production, you can just see absolutely in the tank. So all of her hormones in the tank, especially, they're made by the adrenal glands, or they're supported by the adrenal glands after, menopause. I remember I looked at this and seeing such low cortisol, and I thought that there's got to be something that's just really, really just bogging down this person's immune system. And there was. It ended up being mold. So this person had such high amounts of mold. And in fact, you'll see that the adrenal glands start to adapt, to this, and terrible hormone production, things like that. Everybody wants help with their hormones, but we had to figure out, hey, what was actually crushing her hormones? And it ended up being mold mycotoxicity. And we found that she had been living in a terrible, terrible environment for an extended period of time that was really causing more issues, than just, what people would think with mold was like sneezing or, having those things. It was affecting her hormones quite a bit. I remember she came to me because she was concerned about weight gain. She said, should I do a 5-day fast? I looked at this. I said, absolutely not. Don't you even try to do this. She said, I think I'm going to do it anyway. I said, all right, it's not going to be good for you. Let me know how it goes. And then she did a 5-day fast. And then when I saw her again, I said, how'd it go? She's like, oh my gosh, I couldn't get out of bed after 24 hours, couldn't get out of bed. And one of the reasons why is she could not secrete enough cortisol in order to mobilize her blood sugars. So once her blood sugars went down, couldn't get it back up, had absolutely no energy. Guys, remember this: cortisol is a needed hormone, and cortisol is actually kind of your get up and go hormone. And if you have very low cortisol, you're just not going to have very much energy at all. So this is someone I wouldn't have them fast at all. Okay, so abstaining from food with extended fasting, let's say you're doing it for 5 days, here's what happens, okay? Here's what happens. So, let's say that you start, a fast on Sunday night, okay? And you're going to do a 5-day fast. So that means Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday night, you're going to fast again because or you're going to feed again, or you're going to have a meal. And so you're going to be going a full 5 days or however many hours that is of not eating. Now, day one of the things that I have noticed of people doing it or helping people, guiding people through this is that people feel, oh, this is really, really easy. And one of the reasons why is because they have a lot of glycogen stores, and glycogen is just stored sugar. So they may have a lot of glycogen, in their liver and in their skeletal muscles. So their blood sugars get down, and then the body starts to, you start to secrete cortisol, and then you start cleaving down some of these sugars and start to mobilize them. And you have about 2,500 calories or so. So it's almost like a full day supply of stored sugar. So usually the first day people are like, yeah, this isn't very hard. This is pretty easy. Then day two, they run out of sugar, and then they're solely just, trying to mobilize their fat stores for energy. And then they tell me, oh man, day two, I don't feel very hot. I'm tired. I have a lot of fatigue. Then day three, they're usually saying, I feel like I'm absolutely starving. But one of the things that happens, during this is the body will undergo what's known as autophagy. And this can happen, guys, anytime that you're losing weight, anytime you're in any kind of calorie deficit, but it just happens at an accelerated rate. And so what is autophagy? Well, this is where the body says, you know what, I'm starving here and I need to become as efficient as possible. So in that process of trying to become as efficient as possible, it really just starts to get rid of, old senescent, dying kind of cells that just aren't pulling their weight. And it says, we're going to get rid of you. So it just starts to get rid of cells that are old and just not pulling their weight. And that's something that's known as autophagy. Day four, what happens is people will say, oh, my joints don't hurt. And I've even lost some weight. And I'm like, yeah, you'll lose some weight if you don't eat for 4 days. You're going to lose primarily a lot of water and a lot of glycogen stores. You will lose some fat for most people as well. And then day five, they're saying, hey, I'm actually feeling pretty good. I feel like I'm I'm on the good side of it, on the downhill swing. And I'm feeling pretty good. I'm not actually super hungry. In fact, most people, at day five, they're like, yeah, I could probably go another couple of days as well. And I've done this multiple times. This is basically kind of how I felt as well. So this is just something, for people who do it, something to be able to watch out for, including this too. So here's someone who can't fall asleep, who feels absolutely wired. And I've every time I've done it, I've undergone this, because I know day one slept like a baby. Day two, my cortisol levels are through the roof. At night, as it's trying to mobilize sugars. I always had a hard time getting a good night's rest because I just felt absolutely wired at this point. And this can happen when you are fasting, especially when your body's always trying to mobilize sugars because your cortisol levels are going to be through the roof, and you're going to feel very awake at this time. Okay. So extended fasting, here's the result. Okay. Will you get less inflammation? Absolutely. I'm going to explain to you why. Will you lose weight? Yes, you will lose weight. And in fact, a lot of what you're going to lose is a lot of swelling, inflammation, a lot of water weight, only because if you have a lot of sugar stored in your muscle cells and in your liver, well, they'll carry a lot of water as well. So when people say, oh, I did a 3-day fast or did a 5-day fast and I lost 15, 20 pounds, I'm like, you didn't lose all fat. This is coming from a lot of water weight and losing a lot of inflammation, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Um, yes, you'll get new healing into the area because it will stimulate the production of stem cells, which are immature cells that have the ability to be able to go in and differentiate into different cells depending on where you're in need of stem cells. But I think one of the best things is that over the course of the 3 days or 5 days, you're massively decreasing your insulin exposure. So massively decreasing your insulin exposure. I remember I did a 3-day fast every week for 6 weeks. Then on the tail end of it, I was up to do some blood work, and my insulin levels were literally at like 3. That's it. In fact, most of the time when I look at people's insulin levels, they're the highest I've seen is in the like 200s, and this was because the doctor was giving them insulin because they were so insulin resistant. But many times too, I see people in the 25, 30, 35, 40, and you really do want your insulin levels to be as low as possible in order to have maximum insulin sensitivity. So these are some of the results that take place. Now, Dr. Nate, I did a fast and I felt so less inflamed than I did when I first started. Why is that? Well, here's the answer. Well, over the course of the fast, one of the things I guarantee that you did is you took the immune system out of the digestive process. What do you mean about the immune system and the digestive process? And it has to do with the immune response to certain foods. Okay. So if you look at this is an IgG food allergy test. Okay. So this is a food allergy test. This is not the IgE that everybody thinks is a food allergy. This is also an immune system response. And doctors, allergists hate to call this. They don't want to call it an allergy because they just don't agree with the response, but it's an immune system response to it. So if you looked at this person, you look at how, all of the reactions that they're having to all of these different proteins that are coming from food. Every time they do it, every time they consume that, they're going to have an immune system response, and it may cause bloating, may cause joint pain, may cause headache, may cause, swelling, things like that. But think of this. If you decide you're going to do a fast and you do it for 5 days, well, there's 100% chance that you're going to avoid getting any of these over the course of 5 days. And this is why I say, you could get the benefits of fasting, especially from an inflammatory level, without fasting. And this is actually knowing how your digestive system is working and knowing what your immune system is responding to when it comes to certain food proteins. So, but understand this, you can't fast forever. You can't, eventually you're going to have to introduce foods. So this is why one of the things you really, really need to know and you need to understand is, how's my digestive system working? How's my stomach acid? And, am I releasing enough pancreatic enzymes? How's my gallbladder function? How's all this actually looking? Because just because you fast and you felt great, well, eventually you're going to have to, introduce some kind of food. And it's really important to understand that what you're introducing is not going to be inflammatory to the body. This is why I tell people you can't fast forever. This is why you're going to have to kind of pare this down and start to look at this from a different perspective. But it would be like the person who keeps skinning their knee because they keep tripping on the same buckle of the sidewalk, around their house. And they said, you know what? I'm just going to hide out in my house forever. I'm like, well, you could do that. And yeah, congratulations, you're not skinning your knee. But at some point, you're going to have to go out and get a little bit of exercise. And so you just can't fast necessarily forever. You're going to have to get nutrients in, and you can't do this into perpetuity. You're going to have to start doing something a little bit different. Okay. Now, how do you do an extended fast? How do you do an extended fast? Let's say you're doing something 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. I'd say if you've never done it, this is not medical advice because, man, to people, it just irks people so much. And no, I'm not telling you to do a fast. And please don't send me a message on, showing me your blood work and if you should do it or not. I'm not going to answer that. Okay. How to do an extended fast. The easiest way to do it is do this. You start after your evening meal. So if you're doing a 3-day fast, I'd start on Sunday night. You want to start after your evening meal because now you're sleeping, through it, not thinking about food. So start after your evening meal. So if your evening meal on Sunday night, it was at 6:00, then you're shut it down. You're done eating. And then I would also make sure you're drinking plenty of water. So drink at least half your body weight in water, in ounces. Do I need to be taking minerals? I think everybody should get this every single day, 3,000 to 4,000 milligrams of potassium. I'd be getting a teaspoon of sea salt, 300 to 400 milligrams of magnesium, or maybe even a little bit more if you're working out during the fast. Okay. And then the magic is how you break the fast. Okay. How you break the fast. Cause I have taken well over 100 people, through a fast at one time. And I told them, hey, you haven't eaten for, 3 days. Be careful how you break the fast. Cause just remember this, stomach hasn't had to release, any kind of hydrochloric acid. Pancreas hasn't released any kind of pancreatic enzymes. Gallbladder hasn't released any kind of bile. So it hasn't done that for 3, 4, 5 days. So you don't want to just go in and just blast it with all kinds of food. You want to actually be eating food that's very easy on the body to digest. And so if I was breaking the fast, I would be taking some apple cider vinegar in order to get some acid within the stomach. Probably would take some pancreatic enzymes to help you break down your food. And in fact, I would keep the first meal that I break the fast, I would keep it fairly small. Have some steamed veggies, not raw veggies. Steamed veggies are just easier on the body to be able to break down. But one of the things I definitely wouldn't do is I wouldn't just consume a lot of red meat. Okay. Red meat's a little bit hard on the body to try to tear that apart. And if I haven't been using my stomach for 3 days, you don't want to go and celebrate the breaking of your fast with a 16-ounce ribeye. I did have some people that decided to do that. I said, be careful. And they're like, we celebrated by having a ribeye. I was like, how'd you do? They're like, I was on the toilet for the whole entire night. So that's why keeping your meat very, very low, so that it just doesn't just tear you apart and doesn't cause a lot of gastrointestinal upset as well. So that's how you break the fast. Now, do I need to fast? Well, here's some of the things I would look at as far as blood work, and where people need to be at. Okay. So when I look at people's blood work, I actually think your A1C, which is your 90-day blood sugar average, really should be under 5.4. Well, Dr. Nate, isn't 5.7 pre-diabetes? Yeah, but they've done some research in the Journal of Neurology. They've actually said that 5.4 or over actually causes accelerated brain atrophy. All right. I agree with that as well. So I think ideally your A1C should be less than 5.4, which is your 90-day blood sugar average. We're looking at the degradation of your red blood cells. And then your insulin ideally should be at about 3 to 5 international units per milliliter. That would be ideal. High sensitivity C-reactive protein under 1. This is an inflammatory marker of under 1. I've seen people at 50, 60, and they have an acute infection that's going on. Triglycerides, I would like to see that in the double digits. Here's the thing with triglycerides. If your triglycerides are elevated, then number one, you're probably just eating way too much. I've also seen triglycerides elevated with people with undiagnosed hypothyroidism, or also they're just drinking alcohol way too much, and that's really affecting that. But the other thing too is if you look, and doctors usually aren't measuring this, but you measure your ferritin level or the amount of stored iron. If you're over 300, then I would say you probably have a fatty liver. And having high amounts of iron is so caustic to the body. You don't want a lot of extra iron, or stored iron that's causing all kinds of issues. But usually what it means that you are suffering with fatty liver, either alcoholic fatty liver or non-alcoholic fatty liver. But usually one of the best ways to have a fatty liver is just by eating way too much, and you'll start hanging on to a lot of iron, and that can be very caustic to the body by hanging on to excessive iron for a long period of time. In fact, I've told some people, I'm like, go to your doctor and they'll probably tell you to donate some blood in order to get rid of some of that extra ferritin. So you want to make sure that blood work, I would want it to be there. And in fact, if it's not there, and you're following all the other criteria that I talked about, then you probably would be a good candidate to start fasting too. Okay. Just make sure, guys, if you don't follow us on our socials, follow me on Rumble at Dr. Nathan Thompson, also on YouTube, Facebook, and then also on Instagram. You can follow us on those socials and be able to see all of our live videos and replays and things like that. Just as an FYI, Facebook, they updated their policy where they get rid of all live videos after, I think, 90 days or so. So that way you can't go and rewatch those unless it's fairly recent too. And I don't broadcast from Instagram only because I just don't have the platform yet to be able to do that. But you can follow us on all of those platforms, and I appreciate it if you follow those. Share that with other people so they can follow us on the message that we have for people, to give them hope, to give them healing. All of this is very, very important. In addition to that, guys, our next inflammation talk is going to be Tuesday, July 22nd at 6 o'clock p.m. If you're from the Chicagoland area, you want to work with us directly, here's what I want you to do right now. If you want to work with us, this is an in-person event. You just go to our Linktree profile, click on the very top one, click on that, get registered for it. Take you 30 seconds to register. We'll see you at that event coming up in person, and I'm going to help you see a different approach when it comes to inflammation and things like that. So make sure that you get registered for that right now. I know that we already have people registered for it, so make sure you get registered now so that you don't miss out on your ability to be able to help as quickly as possible. Here's my final thought, guys. Hard work is not enough. It takes hard work with the right approach over time. That's one of the things people say, oh, I'm working hard. I'm working so hard. I'm like, well, you can work as hard as you want, but if you don't have the right approach and you're not doing it for long enough, then, the thing was hard work's not enough. You need the right approach. You need to do it long enough, and I would say so many people, you work hard, but you get so disillusioned, you get so disgruntled and you give up so soon. That's why, guys, I've been doing this for 22 years. Yes, there are times that I wanted to give up. Yes, there are times where I've been disheartened. But one of the things I will tell you is you will never, ever see me give up. You may see me fail, but you will never, ever see me give up. That's why I tell people, so many people, wait. Stop waiting. You need to start acting. This is the time that you start to act and quit waiting. You need the right approach, do it long enough, and you need to do it over time. And that's why for some people, one of the reasons why they're so sick is because they just waited too long, and you need to start acting. So now is the time that you start acting. Fasting 101, guys. If you like this video, please make sure that you share this with other people in order to give them a better understanding of fasting, who should do it, who shouldn't do it, some of the criteria that you need to do or to have in order to be eligible to do that, and also some valuable information on the flu vaccine, why it's an absolute, utter failure. I mean, this is, in my opinion, the joke of healthcare is the flu vaccine, yet they keep defending it. So share this video, guys, with other people. And guys, next week I'll be going live. Don't know what the topic is, but give me some ideas. If you have any ideas, might be a question and answer, but we'll see. So guys, and also if you want to be a part of the Man Up Challenge, we haven't set a date there, but send me a message. Let me know if that's something that you want to do. And we'll be happy to try to accommodate as best as we can. So guys, that's all I got for you. Thank you for your patience. Appreciate you being on this live broadcast. And to all those haters, hi guys, because whenever you're trying to change healthcare, man, you will accumulate a lot of haters, but we love them as well. And I would help them if they came to me with just as much love and compassion and concern that I would have for every other person. So guys, thank you so much for joining this live broadcast. I'll see you guys soon. Be well, be blessed. Remember who you are. I hope you have a great rest of your week.